morning, world. Welcome to another episode of 4 a.m. in quarantine. My name is Steven Rivera, and I'm here with my buddy, Powell Chee. Excited to have him on. Powell is the founder of Multifamily Masters, and I will let him dive a little bit deeper into what Multifamily Masters is. And it's a networking group within the real estate realm. He's also a real estate investor, entrepreneur, and he balances his W-2 corporate job as well. And thank you for being on, Powell. And I am excited, super excited to have you on and for you to tell your story and to give the audience a little bit of what Powell's all about, man.
Sure, absolutely. I'm happy to be here, Steven. Great to be here. So, just to tell you really quickly, I guess, about myself. I live in Los Angeles. Been here for the last 7 years. I run and operate several different companies. First company that you mentioned is Multifamily Masters. So Multifamily Masters is a global networking group within real estate, focusing on multifamily investing. And we have about 7,000 members right now. We started about 2.5 years ago with just 8 of us. And now we've got 60 locations across the United States and a couple globally, one in Hong Kong, one in Dubai, about to launch a couple other internationally as well. And so that's Multifamily Masters. I also do investing. And so I run a company that invests in real estate, and we have about 1,000 units, which I've been a general partner on. And so syndicated about 5 deals, have a couple deals that I've operated as just myself as well. And yeah, entrepreneur side, business side is always exciting. So I run a digital marketing business as well, focusing on helping a lot of small businesses run Facebook ads with chatbots and sequences and things like that. And from there, I really try to help out a lot of real estate professionals and small businesses. And like you said, I do balance that all with my day job as well. So
I love it. And I know that's really a big focus of yours, is just understanding. I know it's got to be difficult in the beginning, right? And I know it's got to be a huge focus of yours, trying to balance everything and making it all work, because I mean, obviously in the beginning it wasn't Multifamily Masters, it wasn't digital marketing and, real estate investing all at once, right? On top of your corporate job. You kind of ease into it and get things rolling one thing at a time. But how do you manage, that staying efficient and effective and productive in your 9-to-5 W-2 job, especially a sales-driven, productivity-based, job, right? How does that, how do you balance that alongside, building a successful, real estate business as well as, everything else you got going on?
yeah, sure. So, so my day job is in sales. I'm on a corporate sales team, so selling to sort of large enterprise companies. And, with a sales job, the good part of it is that you do have some flexibility, right? I'm out in the field a lot, so I'm making a lot of phone calls, I'm visiting a lot of customers, but when you're driving a lot. And so you do have some drive time where you're able to make calls and everything like that. So I do make calls, occasionally, or if I need to check my email, you can do that, during the day. Now, the thing is though, that's one thing that my job kind of gives me in terms of flexibility. It's a lot of flexibility within my job, and not every job has that, but every job has some type of advantage that you can take advantage of. So maybe if you're in front of a computer all the time, you actually have a lot more access to, things that are digital and, communication and things like that. So you can take advantage of being in front of a computer all the time. Or maybe you're a fireman or a policeman and you have long shifts, but you have several days off in between, and you can take advantage of those type of things. Or you maybe work the night shift. Every job does have its advantages and disadvantages. So so you just want to make sure you can work around your job. But the one thing for me though too, like you mentioned, in terms of having a balance, you do need to, for me I need to concentrate on my jobs when I'm at my job. And so when I'm either not making phone calls or things like that, pretty much during those middle blocks of the day, it's pretty much concentrated on making sure that my job is being done very well, at its best. And so that is really important to do. So you don't want to slack off necessarily during your job and things like that. So
Totally. Yeah, and I know that, like, for me anyway, I get in a flow, right? And that's kind of when I call it my unstoppable just focus time, right? And I get super focused. Every single distraction that I have around me is not there. I am focused on the task at hand, and I'm in a creative state where I can, go ahead and really dive deep into whatever I'm doing. Um,
hmm
when I personally was balancing my business, my real estate business, as well as my corporate job at the same time. I didn't do it for very long. I'd say about a year or so. But throughout that year, it was really difficult for me to be able to get into that flow state. It took me probably a good 6 months to even understand and be able to get into the flow state, because for me, I think I'm able to focus more in the morning, and a lot of more of my creativity is takes place in the morning. So I had to find time after work to find that creativity after work, right? So how are you still doing that, right? Because I had a tough time in the beginning, balancing that, and you're obviously continuing to do that, and you do it to this day. So I want you to kind of let people know how you get into flow state when you're either going back and forth between your corporate job and your businesses, and everything that you have going on for you.
sure. So one of the things I learned a few years ago was really is you got to get up early. I mean, that's one of the main things is you got to get up early. And I had heard that before, right? You hear people say, "Oh, get up early and do your work early," and you think, okay, I mean, so for maybe 6 months or so, I was getting up early, but I wasn't doing anything. I was getting up early and I was like checking my phone, right? So I go to my phone and I would look at emails, and then I would look at Facebook, and then I'd look at Google and see what the news was. And then before I know it, it was like 45 minutes or an hour that I just was laying in bed looking at stuff on my phone. And I was like, well, I'm getting up early. I'm being productive. I'm getting through my emails, right? And it really wasn't, it really wasn't productive at all. And then I read a book called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and it talks about how if you want to wake up in the morning, you need to have a certain routine. And there's many successful people that have sort of that you can follow their path of waking up early, starting a routine before you start doing your actual work. And his idea is like, hey, before you could do a bunch of different things, but why don't you try them all? So try all these routines and just try to do them, for a few minutes each, so 5 to 10 minutes a day. And that kind of gave me a lot of structure as far like get up and then do this, early in the morning, have my morning routine. And then once I'm done with that morning routine, it's like, now I can start getting on my work. And so when I work, kind of like you mentioned, I also time block a lot of things. So early in the morning, I know like I have like an hour and a half to focus on this particular job or business. So I focus on that particular task or project that I have at hand. And I don't flip back and forth between, okay, let me do some digital marketing, let me do some real estate, let me do some networking things. It's like this, I block it off so that I know this hour or hour and a half or half hour, whatever it is going to be specifically for that.
Let's
And I
pause
just,
right there real quick, because I want you to, how do you get rid of all the other distractions, and how do you mentally stay focused on that one task?
mhm,
Because I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, is they're time blocking, right? But
mhm.
then all of a sudden, you do get a notification on your phone, or a thought comes into your head, oh wow, I got to do that, and all of a sudden you had to send an email, so you get it back on your computer and you send the email, and now you're no longer focused. So
Yeah.
explain how you do that, please.
Sure, absolutely. And part of this too is I think everybody has to realize this is it's always a work in progress, right? So I'm never thinking like my system is the best and it's ever going to be, and that's it. It's like I'm constantly learning, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do it, maybe I should try this, right? So this is what I do now. It doesn't mean what I did a year ago, and it doesn't mean what I'm going to do in necessarily in the future. But in terms of what I do now is I try to make sure that that project has several tasks in it, and I know what those tasks are, right? So if it's a large thing like, um, say it's like has to do with real estate, and it has to do with I'm trying to find my next deal in real estate. Well, it's not just project find next deal, right? That's not that is the main project, but there's several tasks in there that have to get done. So I want to know what those tasks are. So I usually will write them down, or I'll know hand as far as I can check them off, like call this broker, or call 3 brokers, or analyze this deal, or get these little things done that's inside of that full project. So I know my task that I'm doing, and that helps me move that project forward. Now that project might not finish in that hour or hour and a half, but I know that I've already got my tasks lined out inside of that project. Does that make sense of how?
Yeah. No.
So that's how I do it. So you're not just checking off tasks, random tasks all over the place. You're kind of have sequenced out, these are the next tasks that I need to do to move this project forward. So if it's a digital marketing thing, and then I need to build out a scenario for somebody, then it's okay. What do I need to work on first, right? What do I need to work on? The ad? Do I need to work on a copy? Do I need to work on, the targeting of it? So then I know what I'm going to do in terms of those tasks. Then I go through those steps, and that will bring me down to like condensing the overall task. The overall project isn't as big anymore because I'm hammering out a lot of those tasks in place. So it's good to know what those tasks are, to write them down inside that project.
Yeah. So breaking them down into small actionable steps.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you create that mental focus though, right? And no longer have that distraction. Do you put your phone somewhere else?
Yeah.
Because that's what I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because all it takes is for one email or text or notification to come in, and it completely ruins my focus time.
Yeah. I guess one of those things is like I'm one of those people that is, ever since I've known, I've been very, very focused as a person, right? So things don't break my focus very easily. So texts, emails, Facebook Messenger, all kinds of that stuff just hits me all the time, and it doesn't, like, I just stay on my task that I have to do. And
Wow.
then my task later will be, okay, go back and start to look at all the notifications that went through, because I
Yeah.
don't I don't go away from that. Now, obviously in other people's businesses, you have to kind of weigh out the cost of that and everything. But for me, it's like, I need to focus on this. So that means I don't look at my email. Like I don't look through any of that stuff. I don't look through my notifications. If somebody texts me at that particular time, I don't feel the urge to write back to that person right away. I'll generally just leave it and just say, oh, I know I got to get back to that person sometime soon, but I don't need to do it right now. Right
Mhm.
now, I need to do this. This is my priority. And I'll tell you another thing that something that's helped me, and I've learned from other people, is that they talk about sort of the 2 minute exercise. If it is something that you can do in 2 minutes, then maybe you need to take care of it, right? And if it's just like send somebody something or write this thing down or whatever, then maybe if it could be done in 2 minutes and completed, then go ahead and do it. You don't need to put it off till later, right? Unless you're going to do all of those at a later time. But if it's something that's going to require back and forth, a little bit of a larger project, a little bit of thing, then you need to set it aside and not do it then. And so if it's somebody sends you a text and you can respond and get it done with in 2 minutes, then go for it. But if it's going to take you a while to, like, okay, I'm going to create a whole new post, I'm going to create a whole new chatbot sequence, I'm going to create a whole thing, that's probably not something you want to take. Put it off on a different project. Concentrate on that thing later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a good approach, because anything that takes more than 2 minutes could potentially take 10, 15, 20 minutes and
Exactly.
prolong out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely something that'll take you away from everything that you're doing and that focus.
Mm-hmm.
I can, every single time that I sit down to focus, um, I love how you brought up the action steps, because unless I do have those action steps right in front of me, I'm completely lost. So I'll waste another, half hour just trying to figure out what the next step is in
Mm-hmm.
that sequence to get that next piece of that project done. So for me, creating those action steps, and even a daily to do and plan the night before, is really the only way that I can get into the flow of things. And I do also have a morning routine where I get up, I do the same thing every single morning. I'm able to get that sweat in, I get my coffee in, and then I already have my to do and everything for me set up on my desk. And sometimes, if it's, let's say, my first task, for whatever reason, I have to send out, my first thing is just send out this email, right? I'll have the email already open. I already have it drafted, so I can just pop it to the draft. Most of the time, it's ready to just be sent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's working on this project and it involves PowerPoint, for instance, right? I have PowerPoint up on my desktop already. Pop in there. I know exactly what I have to do. So for me, prepping those action steps and prepping that action is so big for me. Otherwise, sometimes I'll just spin my wheels and not be able to get into that creative state
Yeah,
that
that
I know I need to
you're,
get into.
you're right. I mean, if you are disciplined enough to do that, I mean, that's great. I don't do that every night. I'm able to do it sort of in the morning, during my morning routine, as part of the thing of my scheduling of my day. And I do it in the morning where I have those tasks that I'm going to do. But I also write them on a computer, and I use Asana, so as my project management to go through that, and so I know where my projects are and what tasks need to take place.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, if you could do that the night before, and I have done it the night before, where you are telling yourself this is what I'm going to do the next day, and you prepare yourself for that, much better. I mean, you're much better off at that. Now, I haven't done it. I haven't done that yet. Not consistently, not enough. But I haven't felt exactly the need yet to put that into my routine. But it is something that you can do it. It's great. It's great to do.
Yeah, yeah. For me, waiting till the morning to kind of put my to do together, it
Mhm.
already throws me off track. So I figured,
Yeah.
let's get it done the night before. That's kind of my wind down time.
Hmm.
Just throw everything together, have some sort of plan for that morning, and then it's much easier for me to just plug and play.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Totally. So, how does how does the how does real estate come into to play with you? How did you get involved in real estate? Because I'm always intrigued to know how and why real estate, because I feel like a lot of people, just love real estate in general. A lot of
Hmm.
people have either passion or, excitement around real estate, or their parents were in real estate, or, family members. What drove you to real estate, and, why are you still in real estate, man?
Yeah. From I guess the early age is that my dad got me into it when we were really young. In that he would, uh, dad's an electrician, so blue collar work, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. So it wasn't like we lived in fancy places or anything, but fairly middle class. And but my dad he bought a house, and then he moved, and he would rent out that house, and then he just kept it, and he did that a couple times. And by the time I sort of grew up and everything later, I was like, well, I mean, these houses are in the San Francisco Bay Area, right? So at the time he was buying them, they were like under like $150,000, and right nowadays they're like, a lot of money. So they're like a lot more than that. And I was like, how am I going to do that? Like, I want to try to do that. And my dad's always like, yeah, you got to get into real estate and everything. So, um, and I was like, well, I don't know how I'm going to buy this, $1 million house. Like these things cost like $800,000 right now. How am I gonna afford an $800,000 house? Just trying to come out of college. And I was like, I don't know how that's going to work. So eventually, I, like many people, read Rich Dad Poor Dad, right, and started thinking, wow, that's awesome. That's totally what I want to do. How can I do that? And I had no idea. Like I had no idea, and that kind of idea just kind of fell by the wayside. I always had it in the back of the mind that, yeah, I would love to get into real estate. It seems like there's a lot of power in it. It just seems like a lot of opportunity to really change, to have generational wealth and grow your wealth, and it made a lot of sense to me. And then it wasn't, so I read that book probably 2005-ish, somewhere around then. Um, wasn't really able to put it into any type of action until about 2012, 2013, that I started to understand that, hey, like what I really started to figure out was that I don't really need to do all of this in California, right? So although I live in California, I live in LA at the time, I live in LA now, that was in the Bay Area, but I realized, I don't have to buy a house in LA. I don't have to buy a house in the Bay Area. I could buy a house throughout any part of the United States, right? And that was a big turning point for me. So, and I tell people this is like, when you live in LA and you say, okay, well, I want to buy in LA, you're probably thinking anywhere within 2 hours distance, driving distance. It's still expensive all around. It's still expensive. Now, most people that live in LA are probably okay with buying something in Las Vegas, which is 4 hours away, drive time. And I would say that a significant portion of people are actually okay with buying something maybe in Phoenix, which is like 6 hours drive time away. And when you start thinking about that, you start thinking, okay, well, I could buy a place in Phoenix. It's a lot cheaper. It's still expensive, but it's a lot cheaper than LA or the San Francisco Bay Area. And I could run it as a rental and things like that. And if you're willing to drive 6 hours that way, then you should be willing to probably take a plane ride, 2 hours, 3 hour plane ride somewhere across the United States, and you could buy somewhere. Now you're talking, you could buy 2/3 of the United States is open to you. And so what's the difference between an hour on 3 hours on a plane versus 6 hours driving, right? And so that was really kind of started the genesis of like, hey, I could do this, remotely. So my first house that I bought was in 2015, and it was in Kansas City. So I live in LA. I bought it in Kansas City. And about a year later, the very beginning of 2017, I bought my first multifamily property, which is an apartment building in Indianapolis. So again, I still live in LA, but I bought my first apartment building, which is a 40-unit apartment building in Indianapolis. And so those were kind of like the eye-opening. It was eye-opening from reading about Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad. Then it was eye-opening to think that I could do this. Actually, I don't have to do it in California. I could do it anywhere else in the United States. I just got to be willing to take that, to do that then. And, back in the day, when it could be 10, could be 20, even longer when my dad was purchasing property, it was much more difficult to purchase a property that was, far away, right? Much more harder to run it. But now when you're talking about technology and instant messaging and reports that get generated, auto-generated right away, the ability to see things and connect with people in these other locations, it's the easiest that it's ever been to invest in out-of-state properties or somewhere remote properties. And it's never been easier. And it's just with technology, it's going to continue to get easier and easier. So we're not living in 1980 or 1990 where there was no internet, there was no instant messaging, there was no not everybody had a cell phone and things like that. So these kind of things, it just makes it a lot easier than it was before in the past. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started, and yeah, why I continue to pursue down that route as well.
Yeah, I guess in today's world, right? You feel like you're still a part of the asset, even if you're thousands of miles away,
Mm-hmm.
you're still very much so in tune, right? Because you're able to get these reports generated on the daily. You're still able to stay in contact with your property manager,
Mm-hmm.
and find out if there's a leaky toilet if you want, in probably all of 30 seconds from the point that your property manager finds out, right?
Exactly.
And it makes you feel that much more comfortable as well, where you're not just kind of trusting in this management company that that you can't really have a management hold on yourself.
Hmm.
And I think that that's really what technology and everything and the processes that have evolved over the past, you know, 30, 40, 50 years have given us access to do.
Yeah. I mean, my dad, 40 years ago, he was living in the San Francisco Bay Area and self-managing like a 6-unit apartment building that was in LA. And I'm like, that's, at the time, that's 6-hour drive um, from LA to San Francisco. And you're self-managing a 6-unit apartment building in, this is like the 70s, right? So I'm like, that is difficult. All
Yeah.
right, that's difficult. Nowadays, it's not even close to that difficult. So yeah, and so you have the ability to do it. It's not as difficult as it was in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah. So let's discuss relationships
Hmm.
in real estate and just in business in general. Um, that's been a pretty that's been a fan favorite over our past few episodes, and I
Hmm.
just want to get um, your take on the importance of your relationships, in business, as well as the fact that you run a massive global networking group, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, relationships mean something to you, right? So
Hmm.
let's discuss the importance and you know how do you grow a relationship from the ground up, and especially a business relationship.
Yeah. So, you know, when I started this group, right, it was a multifamily meetup. It was the reasons why I started it was because I was doing this multifamily investing by myself in front of a computer and my phone, and it was just me. And I didn't know anybody else that was doing it. Yes, there were some forums, yes, there were some books and things like that, but I didn't know anybody else that was really doing it. And so I wanted to meet other people because honestly, I'm more of a people person, and just sitting in front of the computer and doing this all day and analyzing deals and looking at spreadsheets and things like that was just not what I wanted to do. It was just became one of those, it was just tedious. So I started a group of, kind of like-minded people that were interested in doing what I was doing. And, I started it with just the idea of, hey, I want to network. I want to grow the network. I want to meet more people and talk about what we're doing and things like that. But that has since grown to much more beyond that, just the simple idea of like, I just want to get together with people. I ended up meeting my business partner through my meetup. So he's my business partner today. And I will tell you, he did a great job. And I've learned from him as in terms of like how to approach a business partner. So I was investing in Indianapolis at the time. He was also investing in Indianapolis at the time. And you first of all have to come from an abundance mindset. And I think both of us had the abundance mindset. And so we were actually competitors because we were looking to buy the same type of property, right, in the same area, same city. We both live in LA, and we're both looking in Indianapolis. And he started like he would find a deal and he would analyze it, and then he would ask me, hey, did you see this deal? And I would say, oh yeah, yes or no, I saw it. And there was a couple times we bid on the same project. But then he started to say, hey, like he started sharing with me his underwriting, which is kind of unusual for a lot of people because they don't want to share things, right? But he's came from the real abundance mindset of like, hey, I'm going to share this because if he gets it, he didn't feel threatened that I was going to like steal it from him, which is great. And then so I was like, hey, this guy's like showing me his underwriting, showing me like what he's going to offer on this property, and I might offer on it too. And like, but knowing that he's going to offer on at this price is, I didn't want to like try to undercut him or do anything like that. But I would talk to him about it, and then so I started sharing some of my underwriting with him, and then we started sharing back and forth, and then we started talking about, hey, well, if he gets a deal, maybe he'll bring me in and we could cut a partner. Maybe if I find a deal, maybe I'll bring him in and find a partner. And then we just started sharing. And the more and more we started sharing, the more we realized we both have the abundance mindset. We both have a similar understanding of how to underwrite, how to operate these deals. And we had a similar idea of just kind of the partnership of what we could create together. And we also had complementary skill sets. Like, um, I'm more of the big picture type of guy, the big picture, and look at it as in what we could do and try to solve the larger problems. He was much better at sort of the operational analysis side of things. So yes, I could analyze deals and he could analyze deals, but he was much faster at analyzing deals than I was, right? But I was much more about, hey, communication with the brokers and talking with people that would get us deals. So we found that we had complementary skill sets, and that really helped us kind of merge into a partnership, like basically a full-time partnership that has gone beyond real estate at this point. Um, and so that's been great. That's kind of one of the ways that people can do it is really to the steps that he took that your audience can take as well. As you need to give and not be afraid that somebody else is going to say, like, take that from you, right? Like, hey, there's a deal. And sometimes you find a deal and you want to put an offer on it, you're like, I don't know if I really want to tell anybody else about it, things like that. But sometimes if you find that partner and you just say, hey, look, I know that it's a little bit of a threat that yes, they could kind of take it away from me and steal it from me. But if you're both really of the abundance mindset, it's kind of like they could just really help you. And the more that you kind of bring stuff to them and say, hey, we could partner with this, we could do this together. Here's where I'm sharing. This is offering you value. And since he offered me so much value in the very beginning, I was like, yeah, well, this is somebody that I could work with down the line. So that's
Yes.
just a small example. I mean, I got many examples of, like, in terms of like networking and what it does and what multifamily masters does as well. So
No, that's a great example though, because so in hindsight, you were able to build trust, right?
mm-hmm.
Before, obviously, he wasn't, wasn't the first time you had met this guy. You didn't have any sort of trust, or you didn't just come off the street and this guy
Mm-hmm.
sharing his underwriting. You built a little bit of trust with him, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
felt he didn't feel any sort of animosity or any sort of the fact that you were going to steal this from under his nose. He had a little bit of trust, and
Mm-hmm.
and again, if you went ahead and you stole that deal from him, you wouldn't be in the position you're in today, and
Yeah,
that's how you ruin business relationships
exactly.
instead of building them. So he had some trust in you, and you were able to go ahead. All of a sudden, you had a little trust in him, and that's a snowball effect, right? And
Mm-hmm.
created now this huge business relationship for you guys, which is fruitful and abundant for the both of you guys, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and that's the way to do it. We started off, sometimes you got to be that first person to really take that first trusting step, right? And you might be a little scared that, hey, that person could take it from me and I really have this great deal and things like that. But truthfully, that, no matter what deal you're looking at, it's not worth it to sort of steal that or try to take it or be conniving in any way. It's better to just be abundance mindset and try to help the person out. And down the line, that might help you out as well. So,
I love it.
uh,
I love it.
yeah.
So let's break down the abundance mindset,
Mm-hmm.
because that comes into play not just in business, comes to play in life,
Mm-hmm.
and comes into play in people's careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a with colleagues and friends. So let's break that down and kind of discuss, when was the first time that you experienced or even knew of the abundance mindset? Because growing up, I had no idea what that meant, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had, growing up as a kid, I didn't know what the abundance mindset meant,
Mm-hmm.
until I actually met some people who had that mindset. And I was able to, kind of feed off of that, and before I was able to actually gain some perspective myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say the time that I can think about it really was around real estate, because real estate, in a lot of sense, has been sort of, I guess maybe not necessarily the recent past, but if you look at the farther past, it was a much more about like, hey, I'm going to do this myself, and I'm going to keep, I want to keep things to myself. But it was really kind of, internally, you would have to learn throughout, your own school of hard knocks of how to do it. But there wasn't really much in terms of great schooling or any ways that you could kind of learn other than finding a mentor who happened to take you under his wing or something like that. So when I started listening to podcasts that came out, and I started realizing, hey, there's a lot of, and I didn't even know what it was necessarily, abundance mindset. There was just a lot of people that were providing value that they're just talking about what they're doing, and they're talking about how to do it, and they're giving out this free information. And I was like, wow, that's a really good point, and that's a really inspiring story, or that's a great resource that I didn't know about. And because they were giving so much of this, and there was so much of this happening, um, I just started just gravitating towards it. I was like, these are the people that I want to be around, right? I want to be around these kind of people who are giving, and not trying to hide the secret. The secret that I don't want to let anybody in. It's like buying apartments in one city. It's like, I tell people, because you can invest where I invest. It doesn't matter. It's not like I own the city. It's not like I own and I'm going to buy every single apartment building there. They were talking thousands of apartment buildings. There's no way that I could buy that. So it's just like, I'm trying to buy whatever one. You could buy the one next door. You can buy the same one that I'm trying to buy. It doesn't really matter like that. Those kind of things, to me, like, I started meeting more and more people who were just of that mindset that, like, this is there's plenty to go around. And not only is there plenty to go around, it's more fun when you do it with people, and when you help people, and you get excited to show people things that can help them. And you get really excited when they do something and they come back and tell you, and they're very grateful for what you were able to help them with. I mean, those are just rewards that you get. And you only get if you are actually giving. If you're never giving, you're never really getting those type of rewards. And those are great gifts to have, just to help, just make you feel like you're contributing to somebody and helping them get somewhere where they may not have gotten there, or they may have taken longer time to get there. I don't know. Those are just for me, just rewarding things that I like to see. So
Yeah, and again, man, I love that, because when I first got into real estate, I was very much so the same way, kind of, you know, learn what I had to learn, and go out, do my thing, and stay to myself, right? I wasn't into sharing my knowledge, wasn't into sharing the secrets, and I definitely think that had a it put me and my business in a place of where I almost was hitting a ceiling, right? I was almost at a plateau, because and I didn't really understand. I was naive at that point. I didn't really understand why. And I think that was definitely one of my biggest, I guess, downfalls, if you will, right? When I was a young, just kind of naive and investor, right? A new investor, had some success in the beginning, had a couple of successful deals, and it took me a little bit to get humble, and to realize, hey, at the end of the day, this minute thing, like piece of value that you're going to provide someone, or a minute secret that you're going to give someone, is not going to affect your bigger picture. And that's why I love that you brought that up, because that's how I work now. And I have been working that way for the past 3-4 years. And it took me about probably a year and a half, 2 years, in the business, to realize, hey, like, you got to get your stuff together, man. You have to start providing more value and helping more people before, you start taking, right. And you expect to create, make X amount of dollars, or reach this threshold. And I truly believe that, every single time you give freely, it'll come back in some which way, right? Doesn't matter if it's that direct relationship, or that direct thing or person. I think that either way, it's going to come back, and that's absolutely what the abundance mindset is all about. It's about giving without expectation to receive anything in return.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, and that's great, great sort of way to project yourself and everything. And my previous career-wise before sales was actually in athletics, and I was in coaching. So I was a coach. And there are a lot of coaches that are like that, right? You're learning a lot from other coaches who have done things in the past, and they're willing to teach you. And you as a coach are willing to, I mean, just your job. You are trying to teach somebody to be better, right? And you're not necessarily getting a huge financial reward or anything for it. Your reward is seeing that person get better and, and improve. And so that's one of those things that, like, just innately I've had a lot of experience with, and I've met a lot of people that had that mentality of like, hey, you could try it this way, and this is the way I coach it, and potentially it can help you. And if it does help you, then that's just good for you. They're not expecting anything in return just because they showed you a new way of coaching a certain athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's kind of how you grow as a person, as a leader, as a business person, is just taking little tidbits of every one of your mentors or someone that comes into your life that, hey, I like this, this approach, right? I like this attitude. Just little things, taking little nuggets from different people is truly what makes you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when people say that they're self-made, or it's just never the case, because you're always being built and made through other people and through
Mm-hmm.
experiences, that and your failures, right? Because it's you'd be putting yourself in a terrible position if you told yourself that you'd be the same person you are 10 years from now that you are today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in my eyes, it's about getting better each and every day and being a completely different person I am today, in 10 years, right?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And it's all part about personal growth, and and what you're doing as a person, and how you're growing as a person. And that's one of those things that I never knew was a big, I guess, sort of a factor in a lot of people's lives, as
Mm.
kind of their personal growth. I didn't really realize that as a youngster, but as I've gotten older, I realized that that's really one of the major things that I've kind of always lived my life by. I used to call it balance, because I used to say, well, I get good at one thing, I want to make sure I'm stronger at my weaknesses, so I balance myself out, so I'm always getting better at my weaknesses. But I realize that now it's not necessarily balance. It's much more about just as a growth and improvement, and it could be growth improvement on what you're good at, or growth improvement on what you're bad at. But whatever you choose to do, it's growth and improvement. That's kind of like something for me that I've always strived for all the time, in almost every facet of my life, whether physical, mental, financial, relationship wise, anything. It's always been about improvement and growing, being better. Yeah.
I love that because growth improvement, if you take you know growth improvement, right, and personal development, and you now mesh that with priorities,
Mhm.
that truly almost articulates you leveling up in a well-rounded way. Because if you understand what your true priorities and your values are, and you strengthen each and every one of those values and now your priorities each and every day, you're bound to be a better person. You're bound to level up every single day, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you never want to be so conceited, or feel like or you're at the top of the game, right? That you're already the best that it's going to be. It's like, no, you want to learn from people, and not just the people that are way up there. You will learn from a lot of people who are just average people, right? And you even people that you didn't think that you were going to necessarily learn anything from, you can still learn a lot from, uh, understanding their perspective, and thinking about how it applies to yourself as well. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, that perspective, that word perspective you used, is huge because you go to a country. I personally love traveling, right? So going to a poor country like the Dominican Republic, for instance, right? You're seeing a lot, their city, and it gives you perspective. It gives you perspective of how these kids are growing up in comparison to how, the abundance that we have, or the of course, everyone goes through hard times, right?
Mhm.
Some go through much harder times, and much harder, more of a difficult upbringing. But those things are the true things that give you that perspective and make you appreciate what you have, and how you were, brought up, and the situation in which you're in. Because you could always think that you're in the worst position possible, but there's always someone that's in a much worse position, or in a much more worse environment, right, than you are.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, focusing on gratitude, just like you said, focusing on gratitude and what you great, being very grateful for what you have. I mean, that is something that I do every single morning, and I try to do that. Actually, maybe this uh, for your audience. One thing that my wife and I do is we say two things we're grateful for every time before we eat. So you could pray, you could do other things, we've prayed and things like that. But right now we do gratitude. So we each say something that we're grateful for every single time before we eat. Two things, usually one about the other person, and then one just kind of in general. And so you know, those are just kind of like good reminders to have throughout the day. I also do gratitude. I also journal about gratitude. So I do mindset things of meditating about gratitude. I also journal every day about gratitude, and then do our pre meal gratitude exercises with my wife as well. So, I mean,
That's
just kind of
awesome.
those things help you feel, keep your mind just open and level headed. And yeah, I think those are all great things to go through a life about. The more you are like that, I think the more you attract people, the more that people, uh, and the more opportunities that come your way. And when things go bad, you realize it's not that bad. You know, it's things you can get over.
That's awesome, though. I mean, how has that affected your relationship, um, in a positive way, by doing that, and speaking that gratitude, before every single meal? What has that done for you, and your relationship with your wife?
I'll tell you, when you really feel it is when you're not on good terms, when you are sort of angry at each other a little bit, right? When you're a little bit tense with each other. And that's when you feel it. If everything is good and happy and everything, then you're like, oh, honey, I'm grateful we got to walk in this nice sun, and then I'm grateful that you prepared a great meal for us. Right? And that's okay. That's great. That's grateful to be grateful
Yeah.
for. But when it's like, oh man, I was so mad that she did this and she shouldn't have done that, and I can't believe that she did that. Now you got to say you're grateful. That's really when it affects you. That's really when you got to, like, okay, this is when it's important to do it, when you're not feeling so fluffy and positive at the moment. And that's it's a challenge, but really challenges are just things there to that you need to try to overcome. So you need to get better at this, right? You can't, if you're really abundance minded, it's not just abundance minded when everything is good. You got to be abundance minded when things are not so good, right? And so those are the times where I sometimes I get too much pride, and I don't like to swallow my pride, but it's forced me to, like, okay, you know what, it's not that important. Like, yes, I was mad that whatever, I don't know, something small that didn't matter, right? I don't know, she woke me up in the middle of the night or whatever, I don't know, didn't
Uh-huh.
I don't know, something small that just whatever set you off for that day. And then you just kind of like got to swallow your pride, take a deep breath, and then realize that it's not that bad. You can get over it. And your wife is somebody that is near and dear to your heart. You love her, and this issue isn't a big deal. And there are a lot of things to be grateful for in having her in your life. And so, I mean, come up with two. It's like, think about it, and helps you to kind of, like I said, be a little level-headed, overcome, not hold on to things that are kind of negative in your life. And so, yeah, it's definitely a good thing.
I love that approach. And, um, you know, letting go is probably one of the hardest things in the world, right? Especially when
Mm-hmm.
someone's done, something terrible to you, right? It's very hard to let that go. And like you said, swallowing your pride and just being that bigger and better person, um, truly will set you free in a way. Um, but have you ever had any instances like that where you had to truly forgive someone that you didn't want to even think about forgiving, that's either did something terrible to you, and you know in the past maybe you would have held a grudge forever, but have you had any instances with that?
I mean, I would say that yes. I mean, there's people that I would felt like, hey, have done me wrong in the past, and I mean, nothing major, right? Um, Nothing major, like nowadays, I would say I live in LA and there's tons of traffic, right? And I have to deal with tons of traffic all the time because I'm on the road all the time, right? So, do I get cut off all the time? Do people honk their horn? Do people like slam on their brakes because of, you accidentally try and change lanes or whatever? Yes, it happens all the time. Just there's confrontations where people, yes, try to want to fight you or something. Yes, it happens, right? Um, but it's one of those things that like, I try to just remember that like, it's not, just it is an incident that has happened. It's not necessarily like, hey, this is a long-term effect of something. This is kind of like something that you could just see as an incident that you could let go of the incident. You don't need to sort of hold on to that person being like a bad person or angry with that person. Um, and so I don't know if that's, those are the kind of incident. I try to treat it as just like, I don't get overly reactive of it. And the more I think you do this, and the more you sort of are in that abundance mindset, and the more that you're thinking about how things are, how you're going to create a better life for yourself and how you're going to, improve and things like that, then those little things don't affect you as much anymore. Like I don't get affected by traffic and by people cutting me off or whatever. I don't get affected really anymore. And so it is harder to really get under my skin to the point where I'm really agitated for even a day. It's just I don't really get that. I don't really get that way so much anymore. I don't know. I'm sure there's something in life. There's always some things in life that are going to challenge you at some particular point, and I'm sure that's going to happen. I just can't think of any times that's happened. I just treat most of the things that are happening that are sort of bad or negative, that they're not um, that they're not all that bad. Like there's ways to get over it. There's still a lot of good that's happening. I mean, I guess you could talk about like COVID and COVID-19 and things that are happening right now, but there's you can still see a lot of good and a lot of good things that are happening and a lot of good people that are doing things right now. And then you can sort of focus and concentrate on those things, and those kind of things will, just keep your mind away from a lot of negativity, things like that.
Absolutely. And you never know what the other person's going through, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, it's tough. It's easy to see your side, but it's not always easy to see their side.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that they may have done or they may have said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although it's many times it's really, really, tough to forgive and forget. Um, most of the time, if not every single time, it's the most important thing for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and to keep your mind clear and to keep your head clear, because you don't want that in the back of your mind either. The fact that maybe you're holding a grudge or whatever it might be. So taking that approach is definitely something that I've worked on and that I've implemented in my life, because again, like you said, it's never all that bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, this too shall pass, so it's not something that's permanent.
Yeah.
and everything is kind of here and gone. Nothing's permanent. So as long as you always remember that in the back of your mind, sometimes it's more difficult than others, but
Hmm.
remembering that is super crucial in just keeping yourself level-headed and focused at the on the task at hand, whether it's personal, business, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah. It's something really quickly that somebody told me a long time ago in terms of just, what somebody if does you wrong or you get angry or something like that. It told me a long time ago that like if you get mad because somebody did something to you, then you give that person a lot of power to control you.
Mm.
And like they can do whatever they want and they control you by your reaction, right? And I was always of that opinion. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And plus, I don't really want somebody to have that much control over me that they
Yeah,
can do whatever, right? They can not open the door in front of me, and then I get offended because they didn't open the door,
yeah,
and like, and I get offended, I get mad, and then I get agitated for another hour. It's like, so they didn't really do anything, but they had this power over me to control my emotions of whether I get mad or not. I was like, that doesn't make sense. I was like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be
and
that
like
person.
robbing like a full hour of your day, right?
Yeah,
They're literally taking it back from you. It's like you're never going to get that back ever again, and for
yeah,
some reason you're still giving someone the power to actually go ahead and do that.
yeah, exactly. And so when I started thinking about that, I was like, I don't want to give somebody that power just to control me just because I get agitated or angry at anything that's, large or small. Just, I was like, so that always kind of gave me that perspective of if I'm ever in that mode of like, I'm really angry. Well, it's like, you are giving that power to somebody who's just, maybe they did a little thing, maybe they accidentally spilled a drink on you. It's like,
Yeah,
it's not, no
yeah,
big deal. Right.
yeah, and maybe they just lost a loved one, right? And
Yeah.
you're not putting yourself in their shoes. So
Hmm.
it's all about perspective again, and all about kind of taking everything with a grain of salt, if you will, right?
Hmm.
And not taking any, not and you can't ever take yourself or anyone else too seriously, right?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Because then you make yourself go crazy. Everything in life is again, it's not never permanent. So
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely.
but I truly love your mindset, your approach to business life, partnerships, and kind of everything that you have to offer as a friend, as a person. I know you and I are working on a couple of projects together,
Hmm.
and I truly appreciate your friendship and everything that you've done for me, for my business, for my life, and I appreciate you as a person, just
Yeah.
from the bottom of my heart, because it's again, life's too short to work with and partner with people that you don't get along with and that you don't like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. Thank you for those kind words. That's, very, very kind words that you said. And so I agree. It's life's too short to like, spend time with people that you don't want to be around. Like, if you want to spend the time with people that you like and you enjoy being around and you have fun with, and you see a good path of progress for you guys and the ability to work together. And so, yeah, absolutely. Don't spend that time on other people that are just not that facet of your life for you.
Yeah, I mean, you have too many options, right? There's way too many options out there for you to settle on someone that doesn't either make you happy or someone that maybe makes you feel inferior, in a way.
Hmm.
So again, man, thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate your relationship, appreciate everything that you've done, and appreciate you hopping on with us today. I love your approach and everything that you're doing. So. Where can people
Oh,
find you and everything that you're doing online, and where can they follow you?
sure. I mean, truthfully, the best way is probably to, you can go. Well, I'll tell you the best way. The best way is to Facebook friend me, and then just Facebook friend me, and then just send me a message. That's the fastest way and
Perfect.
easiest way for me to do. But if you do want my email is Powell, it's my first name, Powell, 2 L's, at multifamilymasters.com. So that's multifamilymasters with a S.com. And you can send me an email there. And happy to connect with people offline or anything like that. Happy to jump on a strategy session and, try to talk to them about whatever it is, whether it's business, whether it's multifamily, whether it's digital marketing services, anything that they'd like to discuss. Happy to point them out in the right direction and yeah, go from there.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you. And I'm sure you'll get some messages, some emails, and connect and change some lives along the way. So thanks so much, Powell, for coming. Again, appreciate you hopping on, and this one's going to be valuable.
Absolutely. Loved it, Stephen. Had a great time, man. Thanks.
Thanks, brother.